So I do want to thank. We have sponsors to thank. I want to thank EMD Serono and Sanofi, Novartis, TG Therapeutics, and Genentech for being our sponsors of today's program. We did have people that were exhibiting as well, and I believe they were EMD Serono. Sanofi was not there. Novartis was there. TG Therapeutics was there. Genentech was not there. I'm sorry to say all these names, but I'm not there, so I really can't see what's going on. All right. And I know that the National MS Society was also there, so I want to thank them greatly for helping out and for helping to get the people coming to this program. And then let's sit back and watch as Paul Pelland comes on first. Paul is a patient advocate, and we'll get this program started. Okay. Thank you so much.
Well, hello, everybody. Thanks for coming. Nice Saturday afternoon before we get a little bit of rain, I guess, tomorrow or Monday, Tuesday. Could use a little more rain, right, around here? Well, my name is Paul Pelland. Most of you have heard me speak before, heard my story. Basically, I'm still out there. My goal is to ride 1 million miles for MS. And had I known it was going to take this long, I probably would have said 1 million kilometers, because I'd be done by now, but here I am. Well, multiple sclerosis affects each of us different ways. My MS symptoms are mostly cognitive, short-term memory loss, mental fatigue, multitasking issues, and short-term memory loss. Did I mention that? Despite the hours that I've spent preparing these slides for today, of course, I have no idea what slide comes next, which is why we need Bill to help us out. Thanks to technology, though, especially today, we have so many ways to help us when we remember to use it. You know, I can't go anywhere without my phone. I use it for just remembering where I need to be or what the things I need to do at the grocery store, even if I'm going to pick up 2 items. By the time you get there, you know the story. So it's great that we do have technology. Without being able to see what I'm supposed to talk about, I probably wouldn't be able to do this presentation. So technology's out there. We find ways to use it, find simple ways to get through life. That makes it a lot easier. I also experienced some numbness, tingling, burning sensations, and loss of strength issues. Heat is a big enemy of mine. Trying to get messages or signals through the damaged circuits in my brain gets really difficult when I get overheated or even when my body temperature rises slightly, which of course causes all my old symptoms to immediately reappear. How many other people are affected by the heat? Yeah, that's why we live in the north. Lately, I've had to deal with cheating, lying, good-for-nothing bladder. And that's a lot of fun when I'm traveling on the motorcycle with all my full gear on. Makes for quite a show when I get to a gas station, finally jump off the bike and realize that it's an emergency. When I was first diagnosed, it was very clear to me the importance of getting on a treatment right away to slow down the progression of the disease. I also started to make an effort to take care of my body by exercising and trying to eat better, healthier. It's made a big difference. Most importantly, though, I have decided or I have discovered to continue to do something that I really love. Following my passion of riding motorcycles every single day, I've been able to keep this disease from controlling my life. Please remember, MS is not who we are. If you look MS up in the dictionary, you're never going to see my picture. So make sure your picture never makes it there either. I guarantee you'll never see my picture. I already said that. Before getting diagnosed, I was a top long-distance competitor, and I rode in some of the toughest motorcycle competitions in the country. During what became my last competition, I experienced weakness, loss of dexterity in my hands, confusion, and memory loss. I retired from competing, and I pretty much gave up riding motorcycles altogether. I tossed away my dreams, my plans for the future, and I prepared for the absolute worst. Well, the worst, it never came, so I stopped waiting for it. 13 years ago, wow, it's hard to believe it's been 13 years, I realized although I could never compete in long-distance motorcycle endurance competitions because of my symptoms anymore, that I could still ride a motorcycle across the country, and that I'd thrown in the towel on an activity that I really loved. So within a few months, I recalculated my entire life's road, and I'm now on a fascinating adventure, riding every day possible, following my passion, while trying to encourage others to recalculate their life's roads as well. The story I would like to share with you tonight, or today, it's real, but the names, dates, and locations have been changed to protect the innocent. This is going way back. 2001. How many years ago was that? 24 years ago. 24 years ago, I was not experiencing any symptoms of multiple sclerosis. But I rode a motorcycle that most certainly did. Lemons and long shots is the story of my experiences entering the granddaddy of all endurance competitions called the Iron Butt Rally. Iron Butt, get it? Iron Butt. It took me over a decade to realize how entering the world's toughest motorcycle competition on the world's most unreliable motorcycle ever built was frightfully similar to everyday challenges brought on by the unpredictable symptoms of MS. However, this adventure also taught me that there is nothing MS can stop me or you from attempting. We just have to work a bit harder and a bit smarter, but we can accomplish amazing things when we put our heart and our minds to it. Although this story is about a motorcycle competition, I hope you also realize that the motorcycle represents MS and all of its symptoms. The event represents daily life, and the rider, who happens to be me, could easily be any one of you here today. Has anyone ever heard of the Iron Butt Rally? Maybe. More people have been in space than have actually completed the Iron Butt Rally. It's called the world's toughest motorcycle competition. It's held every other year, 11 days, and the average rider will ride 11,000 miles during 11 days. Points are accumulated by reaching checkpoints after visiting various optional bonuses picked from hundreds of choices, hundreds of possibilities of places you could go before you need to be at the next checkpoint. It's not a race. It's like a scavenger hunt on steroids. A drawing is held to determine which riders get in from thousands of entries. I knew a few select spots were held open for oddball bikes or antiques. So when my name wasn't drawn for the 2001 event, I sent a letter to the organizers begging for them to let me in. I said if they would let me in, I would ride the biggest piece of crap motorcycle ever built if they let me ride the rally. Well, they sent me back an email. I think it was email, might have been a letter back then, but it said, "We think you're an idiot, Paul, but you're in the rally." At this point, not only, so I had told them I would ride a Russian-made motorcycle called a Ural. Anybody ever hear of a Ural? If you see an old bike going down the highway, blocking traffic with a sidecar, broken down most likely, or about to break down, that's a Ural. They break down on the way home from the dealership when you buy them. That's a true story. At this point, not only did I not own a Ural, I had never seen one in person. But now I'm going to ride one in the Iron Butt. So excited, I wrote the manufacturer of Ural, or the importer in the U.S., I wrote him a letter saying, hey, I'm riding one of your bikes in the Iron Butt Rally. Would you guys like to sponsor me? And the president of Ural America wrote back and said, sorry, Paul, nobody in our office thinks our bike could even finish. Talk about a red flag. So I found and bought a used Ural. I hot rodded the engine and I entered it in a smaller rally, to test it out. About halfway through the rally, the motor decided to weld itself useless. As the big event was getting closer, I again begged Ural America for their help, and they answered me in a big way. They agreed to officially sponsor me, but I just couldn't tell anybody. Talk about confidence. So they delivered a very special secret weapon to me a couple of weeks before the event. I was going to be riding the first Ural motorcycle registered in the United States with a new, redesigned, more powerful, bigger engine. The engine was, I had to sign all these non-disclosure forms because the engine was the first change that they had made since Moses rode one to the edge of the Red Sea. It was a big secret. The 2001 Iron Butt Rally started and finished in Alabama with 3 checkpoints: California, Washington, and Maine. On a map, it's just a big triangle, a rectangle. How hard could it be, I thought.
At the Ramada Inn in Huntsville, Alabama, the motorcycle people have taken over, and not just any motorcycle people. Hello, everyone. I'm Dave Despain. Welcome to Bike Week. Let me show you some motorcycles here.
I am riding a 2001 Ural.
How do other people react when they hear that news?
Well, I get quite a bit of ribbing, but I give it right back so I can take it. And I've put a lot of miles on Urals, and things go wrong. I know what to do to fix it, and I have every intention of finishing the rally.
Yeah, so I was laughed at for my choice of motorcycle, even by national TV. And some riders were actually upset that I was wasting a coveted spot that a real rider with a chance of finishing could have occupied. Sometimes we need to remind people, it's not the bike, or when you live with multiple sclerosis, it's not our bodies, but it's the rider, the person, and our spirit and willpower that will propel us over the finish line. My bike was well prepared. I had huge saddlebags to fit all the spare parts and tools, a custom seat, a bigger windshield, extra driving lights, radar detector, GPS. I was clearly ready to ride. Next slide, Bill. Clearly ready to ride the world's toughest motorcycle competition, right? You could taste the anxiety the morning of the start. After all, some of us have been planning this ride for years. My strategy, which was I proudly proclaimed to anybody who would listen, I was going to ride as freaking fast as I could, so when I broke down, I would have more time to fix it. I was the only one who thought I had any chance of even finishing or making the first checkpoint. Most riders were having an excellent first day, collecting bonuses by taking a photo with their rider flag. Whereas in West Memphis, Arkansas, and about 250 miles from the start, my Ural's engine self-destructed. I frantically called Ural America for help. Curiously, they were not surprised. We found a Ural dealer in Tennessee who did not have any bikes for sale, but he had his own personal Ural motorcycle, and he agreed to let me borrow the engine out of his personal bike. Afraid to close my eyes on a dangerous 3-hour tow ride with an insane driver, I slept on the garage floor as the mechanic took the engine out of his frame and put it in my bike in the middle of the night. I was extremely grateful. And better yet, I was back in the rally. I left the garage like a bat out of hell. Probably not a great idea. The bike now had a 1928 designed 650cc engine without electric starter, without electronic ignition. I soon realized the blinkers and the brake lights were not working. I kept waiting for the engine to warm up and smooth out, but apparently crappy was how this engine was supposed to run. I stopped to check on the rear lights, and after a quick rest, the engine refused to start. I alternated 4 hours of kicking and swearing with resting and praying before it finally coughed to life. I was on the road again, heading to Pomona, California. I was going to prove everybody wrong. That was until my morning freeway crash in Arkansas. The front end of the bike had developed a bit of a crunchy wobble, and a series of dips in the road started an oscillating shimmy in the suspension, and I knew I was in trouble when I looked to the right and I saw my own butt. I slid down the highway just behind my motorcycle, watching bright, colorful sparks, unlike any of those Japanese bikes could make. After I stopped rolling, I slowly checked myself over, make sure I was all in one piece. And I was, but the bike, the windshield was cracked in half. The brake levers were both bent. The air cleaners were missing. The hand grips had been ground down. The saddlebag was ground down. There was a hole in the side of the engine. It leaked oil all over the highway. Damage to just about every part of the side of the bike. What a mess. I had made it through a blown engine, a scary tow ride, an engine transplant, electrical problems, 4 hours of just trying to start the bike, and now a crash. It was really hard to believe it was just 24 hours since the 11-day event had begun. I was exhausted, bruised, embarrassed, and pissed off that this piece of crap motorcycle couldn't even roll in a straight line without falling apart. Maybe it's just me, but anybody in the room starting to think this adventure or misadventure is starting to sound just a little bit like one of the tougher days we have with MS? I had given it all I had, but my rally was over. After I explained what had happened to the Arkansas State Trooper who showed up, he asked me what I was going to do about it. What? He says, well, why don't you just try to patch it up and see if you can keep going on your trip? The thought had not occurred to me. So I got out my JB Weld epoxy and I glued everything back and duct taped the windshield and fixed everything I could on the bike. There was enough oil on the ground to know there was no oil left in the engine. So I told the state trooper, maybe we could get somebody with a tow truck to come up and bring us some oil up on the highway. He just goes back to his patrol car, and he was gone a while. He comes back. I said, is somebody going to bring us some oil? He says, nope, they want too much money. I said, I don't care what it costs. I'm excited now. I'm going to be able to continue. He goes, don't worry about it. He says, I called my wife at home. She's going to the store. She's going to get 2 quarts of oil and meet us up here on the highway. As I travel the country, I've benefited from the generosity of strangers just like this many, many times. His encouragement to continue and his wife's selfless act of kindness is not as rare as the world would have us believe. Asking for help or accepting help from family, friends, or strangers is a sign of strength, not of weakness. Please don't be afraid to ask for help when your MS causes you to stumble or crash. So I rode to the next exit to check myself over, make sure I was okay in the bike, and of course change my underwear. Been a rough 24 hours. I called into rally headquarters and told them I wasn't quitting. I was back on the road. And the second day rally report online said, Team Lazarus rides again. Tuesday afternoon, I was experiencing an intermittent problem. The engine would suddenly lose power. When I would kind of lean over, try to figure out what was going on, the power would pick up again and it would run fine. It happened 3 or 4 times before I realized that my pant leg was getting sucked into one of the open carburetors that had lost its cover in the crash. Sort of reminds me how quick we are sometimes to always blame MS for every ache and pain we experience, right? When it could be something else. Early the next morning, somewhere in New Mexico, the headlight, once as bright as a lit cigarette, it began to get dimmer and dimmer and dimmer. I pulled off the exit and began checking all the wiring. I found a broken wire in the alternator, and I wasn't worried because I was carrying a spare alternator. Unfortunately, the spare alternator was for the other engine that I started the rally on and did not fit this engine. Well, that alternator got bowled right into the woods, and eventually I was able to fix the broken wire, get it back together, and get back on the road. Wednesday afternoon, now 150 miles from the first checkpoint, California. I was 5 hours from being time barred. I was in the desert, and it was 110 degrees. My bike has MS, remember, right? Well, the bike hated the heat. One of the two cylinders, there's two cylinders, one of them calls it quits. So I continued limping along at 25 miles an hour on the highway until I reached a hill. And the bike just refused to go another inch and died. I was completely fried. The bike was totally fried. The California Highway Patrol officer who stopped was not very friendly or willing to let me fiddle with it on the side of the road. I didn't even bother to ask him to call his wife. Against my will, we were towed into Barstow, California. I did all I could to fix the bike, but I finally conceded I would not make it to Pomona checkpoint. I had been through so much, and I was so close, but my brain was fried. I was overheated, angry, and then I became depressed. I was a failure. I called into the checkpoint, reporting I would not make it in time. And that's when the rally staff reminded me that I could miss one of the 4 checkpoints. As long as I reached all the other 3, as long as I went to the checkpoint and got a gas receipt to prove I was at that location. But he said, you're going to lose all the bonus points you got for the first leg. And I said, bonus points? What are those? I didn't get a single bonus. The call gave me a surge of renewed hope, and I eventually found a stripped rocker arm shaft bolt, and I was able to get a couple of nuts together and get the bike running, and both of us were running on both cylinders again. So I went to Pomona, California the next day. I got my gas receipt. I got to experience the Santa Monica Freeway during morning rush hour traffic with only one turn signal and no brake lights. It was quite the experience from a boy from New England. I only remember one other breakdown on the way from Pomona to Washington State, and I diagnosed it and fixed it without even slowing down. I was getting pretty good at this. I fell asleep on a soft patch of asphalt, and upon waking the next morning, I could hardly believe I had made it all the way to checkpoint 2. I got scored, and besides the riders that were out of the rally, I was in last place. Most of the riders were pretty amazed to see me. They had heard some stories, some rumors about me breaking down and not being there. The Ural factory team, their mechanics, were all meeting me there originally for an oil change, but now they were actually putting the only other 750cc, the bigger engine, the second one in the country, putting it into my bike. So my bike was now given a third engine, a full service, electrical wiring was fixed, all the stuff. Heck, it was like I had a brand new motorcycle from the 70s anyway. I figured now, geez, I've got a second chance at a great finish. Ever feel like you have those superpowers after getting steroid treatment? Woo, I'm going to go shingle the roof. Right? That's what I felt like. So I looked over the new bonuses, and I expressed to the rally staff that I really thought about going to Alaska, from Washington to Alaska, for some really big bonus points on that leg. I was strongly encouraged not to go to Alaska. In fact, I was actually threatened by the rally staff that if I went to Alaska and didn't make it, they'd never let me in the rally again. They said, Paul, you don't understand. You have to make it. More people are following your story than the people winning. And then he whispers, he says, and some of us think you might make it. Things were going pretty good the next day until I heard this jingling sound coming from the engine. So I pulled over and tried to figure out what it was. I found a lot of aluminum shavings in the valve cover, and one of the engine push rods seemed to be spinning in an oblong orbit. Not supposed to be doing this. So I called and explained what I had found to the head Russian technician, Golden Hands Alex, and he said, remove push rod, bang straight on rock with hammer. So I removed the bent push rod only to find it wasn't bent. The push rod, along about an 11-inch piece of steel, was broken on the end. It was in two impossible pieces. So I called back that head top Russian factory technician, and he said, no problem, find metal, make push rod. Push rods are somewhat important internal parts of the engine. They move up and down to open and close the valves, letting in the air and the fuel at the precise moment to cause the ignition and the piston to fire. John Quinones asked, what would you do, right? Well, I did have quite a bit of spare parts with me, but I did not have any spare push rods. And I knew duct tape wasn't going to work, so I decided to epoxy it together. JB Weld, I let the glue harden, and I put the pasted together push rod back in the motor and started it up, and it ran. So I tried to be real gentle on the throttle. Incredibly, I made it 50 miles before somewhere near Rawlins, Wyoming, that pasted together push rod failed. Once again, I'm putting along at 25 miles an hour, running on the one cylinder. The engine was thumping, and it began to take on a curious verse. Go home, go home, go home, go home, go home, go home, go home. This was a pivotal moment. I stood up on the foot pegs. I opened up my helmet and I screamed, I will not go home, you commie bastard! And with a grease pencil, I wrote across my windshield, I will not give up. And I vowed no matter what, I was going to finish. I just needed a better plan. I caressed my injured donkey into Rawlins, Wyoming, and I found a hardware store. And in about 5 minutes, I discovered a solution. I purchased a couple of long, hardened drill bits, and with a grinder I had seen in the back room, I forged a couple of brand new Ural push rods. Find metal, make push rod. Check. The drill bit push rod worked, and the bike actually ran better than it had before. I was back on the road and on my way to the third checkpoint. I made it to the checkpoint in Maine, where I retrieved a care package I had mailed a few weeks earlier. The box reads, this package is for the guy riding the biggest piece of crap in the Iron Butt Rally. You know, my whole life I've used laughing. I found laughing and joking, even at my own expense, to be powerful medicine. Today, when living with MS symptoms and deficits, it's no different. I often make fun of my bad memory, my bladder, when I trip or get lost in a parking lot and need help. For me, joking gives the disease less power over me. Here's a picture of my bike with my windshield and my words of encouragement from Wyoming. It also says the normal things like check the oil level, check tire pressure, check your push rods. With the exception of another charging system failure and another alternator repair, I had a rather uneventful 1,300-mile ride to the finish in Madison, Alabama. Of 114 riders that started the 2001 Iron Butt Rally, 93 made it to the finish line. I may have come in 86th place, but I did indeed finish the world's toughest motorcycle competition. In 11 days, I had ridden the motorcycle, never intended for anything even remotely close to what I did to it. I rode a bike in an event where other riders thought I was wasting a valuable entry spot, and even the organizers officially listed me in the hopeless class. I crossed the finish line on a bike whose own company president said wouldn't make it. My struggle to overcome impossible challenges over those 11 days, unforgettable days, helped shape who I am and has taught me that if my desire and willpower is strong enough, there's nothing multiple sclerosis can stop me from attempting. This story helps get me through those days when my symptoms seem like they're winning, or when I can't, or when I wake up worried about disease progression. I hope sharing my story can help you as well, because having a brain riddled with holes, having a physical or mental disability challenge, or riding a piece of junk motorcycle should never confine or define who we are. Please remember, you don't have to come in first place to still be a winner. I know we all have different MS symptoms, and my course of the disease has been quite manageable compared to some. I don't expect anyone in this room to run out and buy a motorcycle and ride it all over creation. But I do know some of you are passionate about something at some time, and maybe that passion was put aside after getting diagnosed with MS. So I hope my million-mile journey for MS inspires you to return to or find a new passion in your life, and to make that passion more important than your disease. Look beyond the obstacles in the road, lean hard into the wind, and never give up on your hopes and dreams. Thank you all for being a great audience.
So, all right, does anybody have any questions from in the audience, please?
The question was, how old was I when I did the rally? And I believe I was like 32-ish. The question was, did I take a bike, this bike or any bike, on the Alcan? Yes, I did have the luxury of riding up to the Arctic Circle in Alaska, and I did the whole Alcan. And yeah, it's a long ride, but it is absolutely beautiful. I try to get up to Banff and Jasper National Park at least once a year when there's a big rally in Washington State. And I go up through Montreal and I cross over all of Canada and go up and do the Canadian National Parks, Icefield Parkway and all that. It's just unbelievable scenery up there. Just blows my mind. Beautiful, yes. Other question. The question is how close I am to 1,000,000 miles. I believe I'm at 666,000. That's not just for Halloween, 666. That's just the way it is. It's been slowing down the last couple of years.
What happened to the original Euro motorcycle?
Well, first of all, there was no collusion. No collusion. Factory-sponsored Russian rider here. So the motorcycle was given to me, but basically I had to give it back to them at the end of the event. And I left Alabama with my truck, with the bike in the back, everything on the bike exactly as I rode it. And they met me somewhere in, I want to say, North Carolina. And they took the bike off of my truck, put it on their truck, and they were asking about the stains on the tank. Is that coffee when you drank coffee? Oh, yeah. Don't touch it. Don't clean it. They wanted to keep it exactly as is. I heard it was going to a museum or something. And then I started publishing my story. And I think they weren't as excited about the bike when they found out it had broken down 27 times every 14 hours, apparently, over 11 days. And I think the people who helped me out were all put to death. KGB took care of them. And it was, I heard at one point the bike was in the office at Ural America. And then I honestly don't know where it went since then. I've thought of trying to trace the VIN and see if I can figure out if it went to the crusher or if it was just stripped and resold or what. But at one point it was in an office somewhere, which was kind of neat. But it still has my tool bag. It has everything on the bike exactly as I wrote it, wherever it is. The question is, what do I ride now? Right now, I ride Yamaha. I have a Yamaha adventure bike. And actually, there's a calendar. There's only one calendar on each table. I only had a couple left. They're this year's calendar, so you got 2 months left. I didn't know calendars had a shelf life. But the bikes in those pictures, the bike I have now, it's an adventure bike. It's a Yamaha Tenere 700. This is my second Tenere. Yamaha has been officially sponsoring me the last, I want to say 8 years. They've been providing me with paying a lot of my expenses, actually, but also with motorcycles, parts, service. They've been incredible, Yamaha USA, supporting me. So I ride Yamahas, and they don't break down. So the question is, other riders in the rally, do they bring toolkits and breakdowns? And the answer is yes. 11,000 miles on a motorcycle is, like 3 or 4 years worth of riding, or what you would do in a car. So like most motorcycles won't go 11,000 miles without even needing tires. The bike I'm on now, every 6,500 miles, I've got to do tires. So 11,000 miles, you've got to find a place to put tires, or have tires shipped somewhere and have them changed. But you're breaking down. There's a lot of, people have accidents and things, or, every rally, there's 3 or 4 deer that get hit. And, if you've got the tools and stuff to repair your bike, my story is sort of unique, but during that rally, there was 5 or 6 other motorcycles that never should have finished that we all finished that year. All the strange bikes, or the little bikes, or a couple of antiques. We had a 19, I want to say 20-something Indian motorcycle antique that finished. I beat him, by the way. Think he was 91. But typically, and even some brand new motorcycles, somebody might have a $40,000, $50,000 bike all set up with all the latest. Today, they've got 7 different video screens and computerized. All the routes are computerized and stuff like that. And some of those guys break down and first day, second day, something happens to the bike and they're either out of the rally, or if they can fix it, they try to fix it. So yeah, everybody usually has a good sense of tools, or they've got a pit crew. They can't follow you around, but they can make phone calls and know a dealer is going to be able to take him on a Sunday afternoon or something like that. You try to make connections so that if you do have an issue somewhere in the country, somebody can come get you and with a trailer, fix your bike and get you back on the route.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I want to thank everybody for being online and in person today. And I want to thank our exhibitors and as well as our sponsors. I mentioned the name of all the sponsors earlier in the program. Thank you, thank you, thank you. People online appreciate you. And I'm sure the people in person, thank you. We're going to call that a wrap and hang it up. Thank you.